Oh, so good to see you all here. I'm not in the program that you noticed, so I need to introduce myself. I'm Stefan Bergheim. I'm a member of the steering committee of this conference. And I'm originally trained as an economist, and I did a lot of work in forecasting GDP, interest rates, exchange rates, and so on in the financial industry. So that's my background. But over the years, I morphed kind of into a designer and facilitator, and that's why I loved you mentioning teacher as a facilitator. I morphed into a designer and facilitator of participatory futures processes, such as today's and tomorrow's and on Friday. And one thing I think I learned is that when you do facilitate such a process, it's kind of important to know who is in the room. Who is in this room here today? I mean, some we see, some people we know already, but some aspects of the people in the room we cannot tell from the name tags and so on. So I'd be interested to learn more about you, and I hope you share that interest. At least some of the conversations I've had share that interest. So it's a WFSF conference here. It's a 24th conference. So the obvious question is, who is a member of the Federation already? If you may stand up, who is a member of course the President is a member. You can stand up as well. So there you see the members, and all the others maybe are future members of the Federation. Welcome. So thank you very much. And the conference obviously is open to non-members as well, as we just discovered, as have been past conferences. It's the 24th conference. Who's been to a conference of the Federation before? Who's been to, for example, Mexico last week? Yeah, last time. No, keep standing, keep standing. Who's been to a conference, any conference of the Federation before? Lovely, take a look around. Okay, everyone else, take a look around as well. So we have, and you'll meet, I think, all of them as speakers. Fabienne, you're not in the program, are you? Okay, so Fabienne Gu is not in the program. Everyone else is. You, I don't know, I'm afraid. What's your name? Okay, thank you. You're on the program. Okay, so you'll see, you know him, I don't. You'll see all those people in the program as well. And maybe who's been to more than one conference of the Federation? Who's been to more than one conference? Yeah, and who's been to, some of you have been to the conference in Hungary, which I heard a lot, which Tamás organized some years ago. Thank you so much. I heard a lot of good things about that conference. So thank you very much for giving us an impression of your linkages to the Federation, or not yet, or visiting. The other thing maybe of interest, since we're in Berlin, thank you, Derek, for reminding us that we are in Berlin. It's a global conference, but we're in Berlin. Who in the room is from Berlin? Who lives in Berlin or neighboring? Brandenburg is included in this. Who's from Berlin? Okay. So you see who to turn to for some local expertise. I mean, we have an evening program tonight and on Thursday, but take a look around. You see who's the locals here. Thank you so much. And who is from other parts of Germany? I include myself. I'm from Frankfurt. Who else is from other parts of Germany? Lovely, super. Thank you. And who's from other parts of Europe? And I include the UK as part of Europe, if there's any questions on that. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, a lot of Europe, thank you. And who's from further away? Who took on a longer travel burden from outside of Europe? So from Mexico, right, Jose? No? Venezuela, lovely. Thank you so much for joining us. We have Brazil, right, with other countries. We have Tom from the US, and of course the delegation from Prince Mohammed bin Fahd University. Thank you so much for traveling here all the way. So thank you. Hong Kong, okay, thank you, Hong Kong. And Italy, no, Italy is, sorry, we had Italy already. Forget it. I thought. And one more question on this, on who's in the room, where you're from. I mean, the Federation is bringing together different groups. Building bridges was something that was mentioned a couple of times between different sectors, and that Helge Braun also mentioned, different sectors. My assumption is that there's a lot of people in the room from academia, universities, and so on. So maybe if you're working, if your main job, I mean, all of you have many different jobs, I know. If your main job is at a university, you're not sure. If you're not sure, yeah, we'll see. But the idea is that you only stand up once. So a lot of academia, so it's a World Futures Studies Federation, so it makes a lot of sense to have academia in the room, thank you. And Helge Braun mentioned the public sector as well, who works for governments or affiliated organization. Okay, so the Norwegian government and international organizations, UNESCO is included in there, okay, and the Greek government, I see, others, thank you so much. Do we have anyone from a corporate, so large companies, like more than 20 people? Aha. Ah, okay. Okay, not too many, okay. There's one. We're going to hear from Volkswagen, I think, on Friday morning to bring in the large companies. Who's freelancers, small foresight businesses, and all that? Who's from this? I include myself in that. So quite a few freelancers as well. Thank you. Any artists in the room? Any full-time kind of professional artists? Okay, all right, thank you. Did I forget anyone? Any sectors that I didn't call? No? Well, you're part of university, yeah. Students, sorry, if the students didn't feel that they're part of universities, okay, sorry. So lovely. Thank you for that sense of who's in the room. So that was one element on my journey to morphing into a designer and facilitator of participatory foresight processes. The other thing I think I learned is to create opportunities where people can connect, more or less by accident as well. And there are some in the program where you can have a chance, and of course over lunch and in the coffee breaks as well. But one particular opportunity to connect with others is waiting in line. And some of you had the occasion already this morning to wait in line when you got your name tag. So I think it's a great opportunity to queue up, and I hope maybe you used it already to connect to some of your neighbors now in front or after or behind you. I'm telling this because I have very fond memories of waiting in line and connecting with others at a conference a few years ago outside of Brussels at a futurist conference, actually. And I was waiting in line for the bus that would take us to dinner, it doesn't matter. And I met a person standing behind me, asking me all sorts of questions and introducing what he was doing. And he introduced me to complexity. For example, complexity as a sense-making framework. He introduced me to multi-ontology sense-making. He introduced me to robustness in anticipatory adaptive human systems. That's why I told you that I'm an economist. I'm a neoclassically trained economist by origin, and that was all new to me. And the impulses then traveled with me over the last 15 years, actually. And I'm so happy that the person who introduced me to all of this is with us here today. And it's Mika Aaltonen, who's in the program later, and who will, I hope, introduce you to some of those concepts. Mika.
Good morning. Yeah, let's put my slides on. Who's in control? Yeah, okay, I tried. Yeah, very well. Okay, good morning to everybody. So it's a great pleasure to be in Berlin I lived here when the wall broke down. I played football for Hertha Berlin. It was a wonderful time, full of excitement, energy, hope. The wall broke down on Thursday, and we had a home game, and our arena is the Berlin Olympic Stadium. And in a halftime, the club management said that all the East Germans can enter freely. So the second half was full, 80,000 people, and they were all shouting Berlin, Berlin, not Hertha, but Berlin, Berlin. And it was a marvelous year. We won the second Bundesliga, Zweite Bundesliga, and then we drove the bus around the city to the mayor and celebrated here. So that fitted very well for the atmosphere. Yeah. So please interrupt me anytime you wish, ask, criticize. So I will interrupt you and ask a couple of questions, and then Stefan will have questions and answer in the end. Months ago, I got an email from an unknown person. It was entitled Ontology. Somebody knew that I would be interested in the topic, and I would open the email. So it was from the editor of Homeland Security Handbook, and he wanted to talk about ontology. He wanted to talk about, and we've been talking about, how to make sense of the world, how to explain the world we live in order to act in it. So I offer you three perspectives. The first one is about digitalization. So I will talk about how it touches some of the ideas and concepts that have constructed and constrained our lives for decades and centuries. Then I talk about the physical world, very much about the logistics, which is my pet project, on which I've been working for 15 years. I talk about transformation in transportation. So what cannot move digitally must travel by sea, by land, or by air. And there are limits what we can do in both worlds, and that's why we have to study them very, very carefully. It takes few years to build a ship. It takes many, many years to build roads or railroads. And then the third perspective I offer is that of science and research, and I'm very much on the complexity side of the world. So that means that I've been working on the first generation of people at Santa Fe Institute. They put together the various sciences, used complex adaptive systems theory explicitly, and benefited from the computational resources in Los Alamos. And very soon it became a factory of Nobel Prize winners. The first three in physics, chemistry, and economics. And then the complexity moved to London School of Economics, and we started to talk about organizational or social complexity, which is even more difficult than the mathematical or biological complexity, which was the basis at Santa Fe Institute. So, how we perceive the world today is that this kind of activity has been going on for years, for centuries, when it comes to human beings. This is what we do. We compete with each other, our corporations compete, nations compete, who will conquer new lands and seas. And what we think about when it comes to digitalization, so we are competing also building a new venue where things can be done and where we can build tools to navigate within that venue. And pretty soon when we started to talk about the internet and digitalization, we started to think that pretty soon all the aspects of human lives will be there, will be included. So we are creating a parallel world. We could talk about inventing realities or planes of influence. We have the land, the sea, the air, the electromagnetic spectrum, the outer space, extraterrestrial space, virtual realities. but then we have to be able to subscribe into them in order to use them, or we have to be allowed to get in order to use them. One of the insights we found when we worked on this topic was the catchphrase, the more you can sense, the more you can do. What you can sense defines what you can do. So we are very far when it comes to seeing, hearing, maybe touching a little bit, but then we are lacking in taste and smell in order to create a perfect parallel world. Digital Rex is emerging. So when we talk about this virtual ecosystem, some of the actors there are benign, some of them are malign. So if we talk about deep net, we talk about dark net. 96% of the internet volume is happening there. So they are using the same technologies, but the difference between deep net and dark net is very much semantic. So when we are in the deep net, so we can act there, we can communicate, we can keep website without revealing our identities. But what we are doing doesn't have to be illegal. But then when we start to talk about the dark net, the activities there are all the illegal activities that we have also in the physical world. And then there's blockchain, which enables us to transfer value and transfer money without nobody seeing that we are actually doing it. He who imagines best wins. So the whole development, or most of the development, when we are talking about the internet, when we are talking about artificial intelligence, uses the biological metaphor. And in our opinion, in our work, we think that the present moment is comparative with one special moment in human history, or in the Earth's history, and that was the age of Cambrian explosion over 500 million years ago. And that was the time when we had the one-cellular organisms, and then we began to have multicellular organisms. And the diversity of life exploded and started to remind the world that we have today. So this is how we perceive the world today. I think this is very, very significant. And then when it comes from the intelligence community, if most of the people, most of the organizations use the mental model that comes from the biological world or biological metaphor, if there are groups of people, if there are organizations that use a different kind of metaphor that is working, so the work that they are doing remains unseen by the others. So this is, from my point of view, this is quite a good picture. It's much better than it targeted to be. This is about mixed reality displays. This is about 30 years ago. So these guys are Japanese, and they started to talk about what you see when you're looking at your computer. So it's very easy to talk about reality. This is the physical reality. We are here now. And on the other part, it's very easy to talk about the virtuality. Okay, but in between we have the mixed reality. Augmented reality means that we are bringing stuff from the virtual world to the physical world, and augmented virtuality means that we are bringing the real world stuff to the virtuality. And for me, this is quite insightful. And we should think of also that most of the concepts, most of the thinking and ideas that we have is created before these times. they were created only and for the physical world. All the Greek thinking, all the French thinking, philosophers, sociologists, their world was very, very limited to local opportunities. And now our world is different. If we talk about human beings, so we are limited in our physical experience, but then maybe we can have eyeglasses, we can have hearing devices. They are 400 years ago old. Then we go further, and then we have new organs can be created today. We are moving to worlds of $6 million man and biodynamic woman. And then what we have today, and this is really already working, we have agents and avatars, and these are totally software. And they are not communicating only with us, human beings, they are communicating also between themselves. And this starts to look like the life we are living today. So we are talking about the spatial world versus the temporal world. And one story describes the difference very well. You know that we used to talk about the New York City minute. So that what everything takes place in a huge city in 1 minute. So it's a busy life there. But that city looks a small town if we compare what is going on the internet or on the digital world today. Every day we send 269 million emails. If a person looks all the videos that are downloaded in YouTube in 1 day, it would take him 50 years to do that without sleeping or eating at all. Yes. In 2003, we reached the moment that in 2 hours, the humankind produced as much information as in the whole history before that year. Yes. So I think that what we can take away with this slide is the importance of time and timing, how it is behind of every successful decision or strategy. And when we talk about innovation, so what we are doing in the European Union, in many of our nations, it's like catch-22. So that means that if we see something which is popular, sexy, or something, then we build up an R&D program. And that means that we are always behind. If something has already emerged, an idea, thinking, service, product, it's been many years in the making. So when we are putting our resources always there, and we will never reach the innovation. And for me, this is very much what the European Union is doing. Think about artificial intelligence, think about platform strategies. They happened decades ago. When it comes to artificial intelligence, an organization like National Reconnaissance Organization started to work after the Second World War, and they worked 30 years without being publicly known that this is what they are doing. And then the artificial intelligence emerged, but lots of stuff has already happened. When WikiLeaks happened, I was having a cup of coffee on the terrace of Willard. Willard is a nice hotel in Washington, the closest building to White House. You can see the helicopters come and go, and they are taking the generals and the CEOs there, and there you can have your cup of coffee. So we discussed what will happen next. And pretty soon everybody agreed that within 24 hours, we will know who was the leaker, and we will know where the leak happened. because everything that is taking place digitally will leave a mark. And it is very, very, very easy for cryptologists to track that. Despite of what you've been told, everything can be uncoded. Every digital information is behind 17 lines, and if you are a professional cryptologist, so you can uncode it quite easily. And this kind of activity doesn't have to come from agencies that have 3-letter abbreviations. They can come from persons, singular persons, small companies, etc. And it is more difficult to hide the theft than to steal itself. But sometimes you don't have to steal. You can fake the information, you can delay the information, etc., and it can fulfill your strategies. It changes also when we are talking about power. And this is a major change, because many of the people who are working in the governance, they see the nation states as the main users of the power. So the power hinges on political power, financial power, diplomatic power, etc. But now the times have changed. And we have seen this in the Arab Spring, in Movimento 5 Stelle. When the Arab Spring happened, my American colleague said to me that we have tried to achieve this for years, and now they are doing it by themselves. And Movimento 5 Stelle, when it emerged, so they had nothing, not money, not resources, not people, only one actor, one crazy Italian actor, and the use of social media. And they became one of the biggest parties in Italy. And the same in Brexit, and the same in US 2016 presidential elections. So the instruments of power, they are changing. If you have seen slides or pictures of Cambridge Analytica, they seem familiar because they worked in the same rooms where Donald Trump ran his program, The Deal. And in the next room, they had another project. It was called the Los Alamos Project. And they did digital advertising for $1 million a day, or we call it fake news for $1 million a day. And the tools that links them to the Cambridge Analytica was one-click personality test. If you got that kind of message with that kind of headline, do not open it. Because if you open it, all the contact data that you have will be delivered for them, and they are using that for the fake news or the targeted marketing. And that was used for Brexit, and that was used for the US elections and for 15 other national elections in the world. So that means that the tools of influence are changing. So there are the nation states, then we have the multinational corporations which operate outside the national legalities. And then we have the individuals. And this is one of the biggest topics that we have seen that is changed also. We have thought in the schools that there exists, that the ancient Greeks, they have told us that there is this kind of ground truth. But today we'll tell you that this kind of thinking is very limiting, or it can be even dangerous. Because if we send a piece of information to circle the world, and even if it wasn't true, when it comes back to us, to people may feel, think, and then act on it. So this kind of information that takes place in the internet is absent to truth or falsehood. And when it comes to education, for example, so for our children's education, I think that this is a very critical issue, to learn the critical thinking, to learn to understand knowledge. Yeah, this changes the whole concept of epistemology, what knowledge is in the 21st century. When we have talked about the internet, most of the talks is about that this is a wonderful thing. This is democratizing the world. This is giving information for everyone. So this is mainly a good thing. But simultaneously, when these kind of things happen, other kinds of things happen too. The world has become a more secretive place. So you can get invited to come to companies, to organizations whose work is not visible, and not knowing what you don't know complicates things very, very, very much. So this is my first question. Please think about what came to your mind during this presentation. What did you like about it? What did you didn't like about it? And talk to the man or woman next to you, 2 or 3 persons together, so 3 minutes. What did you like, what you didn't like? 3 minutes with the next door man to you. Okay, guys and girls, thank you. So, few more minutes, few more slides. Mister? Yes, very well, thank you. So this is the second topic that I was mentioning. So this is something I've been working on for 15 years. So the major point is that the world is changing. These are the routes or the lines how boats and how goods is traveling the world. It used to be between America and Europe, and now it's from China to Europe and from China to US. And we took the timeline from when the Berlin Wall broke down, and that changed very, very, very much, because now every nation is a maritime nation, and this is a huge difference. And this is the topic that we've been working on, and you will begin to see how the world logistics is changing. Where we build the ports, or if we don't build the ports, that's a strategic choice. And if we don't build them, so we will be out of the business in 20 years or 30 years' time. And the ports of the future will not be the same as the ports of today. Yes? This is what we've been talking about. So this is a train, this is a satellite train, this is what you need to understand in order to understand the world. Twice a day we have a morning train and we have an afternoon train. So they go around the Arctic, they measure the thickness of the ice, the temperature of the water, the power of the wind, etc. And that creates a digital time series. And when we brought this up to the public and said to the world that the Arctic is melting very, very quickly, and we can watch it melt in our television. That was radical in comparison with the IPCC material. IPCC, the International Panel for Climate Change, produces manual material every 7th year. What we do is like the stock exchanges, so we will have the very, very present picture of the situation. The capabilities of this kind of activity. So you know Met, the British Weather Office, they make more than 1 tera of calculations every day and produce over 4 million scenarios every day. If you didn't have this capability, analytic capability, and even if you were a very hard-working academician, it would be very difficult for you to produce the 4 million scenarios, then go back home to supper, and then sleep a little bit, and then come back and produce again 4 million scenarios. I would like to see how many days you last. Yeah, okay. Then we go further, because this is what we are talking about in this seminar. So this, what we describe here, this is on the right top, and that is also a satellite image from top of the world, and it shows us that the ice is melting. And then there's analytic information on the left side, and that is US Geological Survey. Huge resources do the kind of research that not many organizations in the world can do. And they were looking for the unused oil and gas resources and found out that 1/3 of these resources lie on the top of the planet, on the top of the world. We can recognize Greenland, which is white here, the biggest one, Novaya Zemlya, which is the Russian island in between those red lines. So, and if we know something about human being, if a man possesses these kinds of resources, eventually he will use them. This is how we see the situation. And then we use the different kind of analytic, financial analytics, that is the Trans-Siberian Railroad, which is the top of that picture there. And then we looked at the Silk Road, then we looked at all the investment of Deutsche Bank and of other institutes in these roads, because where the investments are made, the future will be created. So we will know that China don't want to go through Singapore anymore, and they are building a railroad directly to Indian Ocean. Yes, and out of these, so now we are talking about the emergence. We are talking about singular analytic capabilities on certain topic, but understanding the emergence of the future is understanding the relationship and how these come together, and that is strategic information. Yes. Yeah. So this is, when we talked about the venues, when we talk about the world we live in, the reality, so we talk about different levels of influence. And when we start to make sense of it, so we have a timeline and things take place in various levels, and then later, little by little, maybe the strategy or the intention of some of the actors in the global scheme become knowable for us. Yeah, this is quite nice. And then two conclusions out of this work is, so we are moving from the spatial world to the temporal world. And this has been a very, very large, huge learning process when we talk about the analysts' strategies of the world. Teach them or teach us to think the world or perceive the world in temporal terms. Produce a sophisticated understanding of timing. So these are the qualities what we need today. And what else? So we are moving away from the old equatorial world, and we are moving to the world which is characterized by Arctic. When the climate change goes on, and it will go on, there's nothing we can do in near years or near decades to stop it. It will go on. So that will reveal the largest unused resources since the Spanish stole the American or South American gold 500 years ago. And this will create a new kind of transportation system. And this is what I've been working for 15 years, and this is why I haven't been able to participate all the fine conferences that you have had. But thank you very much for having me. I have one question for you. What was the most important thought that came to your mind during this presentation? Talk 2 minutes with the same friend you talked earlier. What was the most important thought that came to your mind during this presentation? 2 minutes.